Awesome. Um, Hello, everyone. We are the Jackson Family Foundation funding partner interactive map team. I promise I'm pushing it. Okay. Excuse me. So our sponsor is the Jackson Family Foundation. The Jackson Family Foundation is a privately funded organization funded through the privately owned company Jackson Family. So Dr. Dr. Bone mentioned earlier that he is not very good at public speaking. I'm going to confess to that as well, just as a forewarning. So I'm going to start that over. The Jackson Family Foundation is a privately funded organization that is funded through the privately owned Jackson Healthcare Company. The Jackson Family Foundation partners with organizations who are committed to fulfilling the Great Commission by sharing the love of Christ globally. Our stakeholders for this project include Jennifer Duncan, Richard Jackson, Chad Jackson, Miranda Butler, Josh Berman, Richard Dolan, Keith Jennings, and Todd Atkinson. With that, I'll hand it off to Josh to introduce our management team.
Thank you very much. So for our management team this past year, we had Dr. Trudy Bowman as our tribe lead, right there, and we had Melanie Kugler-Wright as our project manager. As for our development team, that was Evan. He was both our product manager and our squad lead. I am Joshua Baszler, and I was the development manager this past year. Right here we have Shelby. She was one of our developers. We have Matthew Kirian right here. And we have, last but not least, we have Andres Ruiz. So for our problem and opportunity, the problem that the Jackson Family Foundation presented us with is that they interacted with many global partners, and they were actively managing their partnership portfolio. However, the Jackson Family Foundation did not have a usable interface to evaluate their grants according to the geographic area, and this hindered their ability to manage strategies. So the opportunity that was presented to us is that we were able to implement a web application that enables web-based visualization of these grants. And for our demonstration of the solution and talking about some of the components, I'm going to hand this off to Andres.
Awesome, thank you, Josh. All right, so when you navigate to our website, this is what you're gonna see. On the far right side, you see our organization menu. This has your search and filtering interface, as well as our the list of grant cards. So that just kind of contains additional information on each of the grants. Within the map, you see various grant clusters. Those are just clustered grants and where they are. And then on the right side, you see a login drop-down where you can upload a file and sign out. So our organization menu, like I mentioned, has a list of grant cards, which includes information on organization, or information for the grants, which includes organization name, grant amount, location, meeting date, and recommendation. And then it also has the interface for the ability to access the interface for grant searching and filtering. And I'll hand it off to Shelby to talk more about that.
So as Andy mentioned, the filtering and searching is contained within the organization menu on the left side when you're looking at it. As you can see from the filter modal there, we provide an interface to enable filtering grants according to grant properties, and these are dynamically updated when the data is updated. So the country, region, strategy area, and grant amount, those all update accordingly. And then as you saw on the big map, there were a bunch of little circles. Those all turn into bigger circles, which become grant clusters. These clusters of grants cluster the grants in a close geographic proximity to improve readability. Otherwise, there's a lot of circles on the map. The colors in the cluster area refer to a program area, which has already been defined by the Jackson Family Foundation. And then when you hover over one of the clusters, as you can see, you see the list of the organizations and some basic information about it. And then I'll hand it off to Matthew for the file upload.
Thank you, appreciate that. Now let's talk a little bit more about the backend and more specifically how we actually get this data. So the data is delivered to us by our sponsor in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. We then have to parse this, make sense of the data, go get some extra data, and then return it to the front end so we can display it to the end user. Now, parsing the Excel spreadsheet is very, very easy. It's one line of code, but the process to get there was not easy. as we had to go through multiple libraries. We had to deal with many bugs. And overall, we ended up having to move it to an entirely different language in order to parse the Excel spreadsheet due to upstream issues with the spreadsheet. We had a lot of value and a lot of highlights. Let's talk about them. Now, the solution allows for the geographical visualization of the grants. What does that mean? It means that we look at the map and we can just see all the grants exactly where they are in real time and have them be updated without having to move any note cards or index cards or push pins or whatever the previous solutions may have been. The solution replaces the current method, which involved manual cluster lookup and representation with a magnetic map. That seems self-explanatory. We had a lot of highlights this year. Let me tell you about that. So we had a substantial learning opportunities provided by the sponsor center around continuous deployment of the solution. This was many of ours first major experience working with CI/CD, and by having to constantly redefine and reimagine our solutions and continually working through them, it just meant that we learned a lot more than we would if we just closed ourselves in and we went from point A to point B, just start to finish, without ever talking to our sponsor. And not only that, but this also allowed us to really have a lot more freedom and be able to explore what they wanted from us and actually deliver on those promises. So just the opportunity to work with our wonderful sponsor really just made this entire project and made this probably one of the best learning experiences that we've gotten in university. So thank you for that. And that concludes our presentation on the Jackson family. Never mind.
So I'd like to invite our sponsor down so that way we can present them with this token of appreciation. Like Matthew just mentioned, our sponsor has been really awesome for this project. They've been extremely helpful and really supportive for the project. And we can't thank them enough for both coming from Atlanta to come see this presentation and for sponsoring this project. So